health is severely at risk. And that's not the main issue. The main issue is whether or not the Roe v. Wade decision is going to be overturned. I support a woman's right to choose. My opponent does not. It is important because the next president is going to appoint 3, maybe even 4 justices of the Supreme Court. And Governor Bush has declared to the anti-choice groups that he will appoint justices in the mold of Scalia and Clarence Thomas, who are known for being the most vigorous opponents of a woman's right to choose. Here's the difference. He trusts the government to order a woman to do what it thinks she ought to do. I trust women to make the decisions that affect their lives, their destinies, and their bodies. And I think a woman's right to choose ought to be protected and defended.
Governor, we'll go to the Supreme Court question in a moment, but make sure I understand your position on RU 486. If you're elected president, will you, not through appointments to the FDA, you won't support legislation to overturn this?
I don't think a president can unilaterally overturn it. I think the FDA's made its decision.
But it means you wouldn't through appointments to the FDA and ask them to reappraise it?
I think once the decision's made, it's been made. Now, unless it's proven to be unsafe to women.
Well, Jim, the question you asked, if I heard you correctly, was would he support legislation to overturn it? And if I heard the statement day before yesterday, you said you would order, he said he would order his FDA appointee to review the decision. And now that sounds to me a little bit different. And I just think that we ought to support the decision.
I said I would make sure that women would be safe who use the drug.
All right, on the Supreme Court question, should a voter assume, you're pro-life, you just stated your position, should a voter assume that all judicial appointments you make to the Supreme Court or any other court, federal court, will also be pro-life?
Voters should assume that I have no litmus test on that issue or any other issue. But the voters will know I'll put competent judges on the bench, people who will strictly interpret the Constitution and will not use the bench to write social policy. And that's going to be a big difference between my opponent and me. I believe that the judges ought not to take the place of the legislative branch of government, that they're appointed for life, and that they ought to look at the Constitution as sacred. They shouldn't misuse their bench. I don't believe in liberal activist judges. I believe in strict constructionists. And those are the kind of judges I will appoint. I've named 4 Supreme Court judges in the state of Texas, and I would ask the people to check out their qualifications, their deliberations. They're good, solid men and women who have made good, sound judgments on behalf of the people of Texas.
What kind of appointment should they expect from you?
Both of us use similar language to reach an exactly opposite outcome. I don't favor litmus tests, but I know that there are ways to assess how a potential justice interprets the Constitution, and in my view, the Constitution ought to be interpreted as a document that grows with our country and our history. And I believe, for example, that there is a right of privacy in the 4th Amendment. And when the phrase strict constructionist is used, and when the names of Scalia and Thomas are used as benchmarks for who would be appointed, those are code words, and nobody should mistake this, for saying that the governor would appoint people who would overturn Roe v. Wade. I mean, it's very clear to me, and I would appoint people who have a philosophy that I think would make it quite likely that they would uphold Roe v. Wade.
Is the Vice President right? Is that a code word for overturning Roe v. Wade?
Sounds like the Vice President's not very right many times tonight. I've just told you the criterion in which I'll appoint judges. I've had a record of appointing judges in the state of Texas. That's what a governor gets to do. A governor gets to name Supreme Court judges, and I've given him my. He also reads all kinds of things into my tax plan, into my Medicare plan, and I just want the viewers out there to listen to what I have to say about it.
That's a yes.
Reverse
it is
the
a code.
Reverse the question. What code phrases should we read by what you said about what kind of people you will appoint to the U.S.
It would be very likely that they'd uphold Roe v. Wade, but I do believe it's wrong to use a litmus test. But if you look at the history of a lower court judge's rulings, you can get a pretty good idea of how they're going to interpret questions. Now, a lot of questions are of first impression.